A new Harris poll says that only 1 in 3 Americans say that they're happy, which would explain all the antidepressant commercials on TV. Let's take a look at some numbers. Happiness, so yeah, 33%. This is the happiness index, as you can see on our very fancy card. 33% of Americans say they're happy. Happiness levels are fairly high during youth. They get a little less when you're in your 40s. They increase again in the mid-50s, peaking later in life, probably the minute before you die. Optimism, 67% of respondents say that they were optimistic about the future as compared to 75% in 2011, so that's dropping. And optimism levels in the US are significantly below the global average. 89% of citizens internationally feel that the future will be as good or better than their present situation. So this seems actually pretty in line with everything we hear all the time, that this generation of young people is going to be worse off than their parents for the first time in American history. And it's just being so ingrained in us that America seems donezo, kind of. Is America over, and are we truly less happy and have a worse outlook?
These are difficult numbers, and we must sift through them. First of all, the global average of 89% of people in the world think that the future will be as good or better. There's like 1 billion people who don't have toilets.
Exactly.
So how much worse could it get? I think that's just kind of self-fulfilling, that it has to be better, right? Are they going to take away my not a toilet?
Right. They're going, oh, they're going to take away my hole, and we're saying, can I get PlayStation 4? And
right, exactly. So we have it pretty good. Also, this is people saying they're very happy. And to be honest, I hate those people. People are like, oh, it's so good today, isn't it a gift?
Yeah.
I just want to smack or shake them.
Yeah.
So that's my take.
Happiness, Fred? How happy are you on a day-to-day basis? How important is happiness in the Fred Karger operation?
I think it's very important, of course. And as a gay activist, it's been interesting as I've talked to a lot of parents, particularly those with LGBT kids, and I've asked them, what do you want for your kids? And the number one thing is to be happy. Yeah. And I think that's so ingrained in us, it's important. And put everything else aside, that's kind of the bottom line. And there are varying degrees of happiness, and you can't be this very happy mood all the time. It's a roller coaster. So I think it's good. I think the question I have in these studies, of course, you can depend on how the questions are asked, can be all over the place. But I don't know if people get that much happier with age. I think there's a lot of depression with older people as they're left aside in the world. But I think it's good. And Brett says this is important. It's all relative. What is considered happy? We're so fortunate in this country to live in this nation. When you go around the world and see everybody lined up at our consulates who want to come here, just the fact that we're in this country with these freedoms that we don't have in places like China, we're very fortunate. Just be happy.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was fascinating in this poll is that they showed that in Israel they're much happier than us, which seems bizarre because they're surrounded by enemies, there are bombs going off, all kinds of other stuff. So maybe it's our excess and all of our freedoms that in a weird way make us not happy. Is that possible, that we don't have existential threats so we can be worrying about nonsensical things all the time?
Yeah, I've been watching The Sopranos again. And little AJ has everything.
And look at that. Yeah.
Did we give him too much, is what Tony and Carmela ask themselves all the time. And maybe that is it. I just think there's also like a complaining culture on the rise where it's just nice, it makes you feel happy to complain. And then there's a politeness issue where if you just rub it in people's face how happy you are. The fact that 2 out of 3 people aren't that happy kind of makes me happy. So if we can all take solace in that, maybe the 2 of the 3 of us who are like sad about it, and we'll be happy again. And maybe then we'll all be happy.
Yeah. Do you guys think that maybe happiness is overrated as part of humanity? Like no other species on Earth, they eat and they die and they kill and, make babies. But we are constantly under this pressure that we have to be happy. I always think when I was doing stand-up all the time, when I just started and I was really struggling and I had no money and I was working shitty gigs, doing all this awful stuff, people always used to say to me, well, as long as you're happy. And I always thought it was crazy. Like, why should I be happy? I'm trying to follow my dream. I'm hanging out with drug addicts and alcoholics every night. Why should I have the burden of happiness? Can be a weird burden too, can it? As opposed to just living some sort of even-keeled, slightly depressed operation. Wouldn't that be easier?
It is easier.
It's work being happy.
Sure, it's a lot of work, and we all live that life that's up and down, and that's important to realize, but take advantage of the happy times and just know that you want to live a good life. Be good to other people. That's my measure of happiness. When that you close your eyes for the last time, it's like, what kind of life did you live where you're a good person? And so I think that's happiness, my definition.
All right, so final thought on happiness, because we can't talk about happiness without talking about the prescription drug situation, because you turn on the TV and literally every commercial is a sad cartoon chasing a man around all day and another man who can't get an erection, another man who's bald, and they all have horrific side effects, including depression and death and all that kind of stuff. But is this, again, because we put so much pressure on ourselves being happy, that we're taking drugs that are making us suicidal, thus not happy, then we take another drug, because now you can take Abilify, which works with the other thing, and blah, blah, blah. Happiness and drugs. What's the deal?
I think we've always been kind of depressed, I feel, because look at and this is just, we now have drugs that can help us as opposed to getting on top of it. Not to, there's a line of mental illness and that kind of thing, which is official and clinical that, I don't want to get into, but there's definitely that fringe where people just give me some Zoloft or something. But that said, the American dream is, come to this country, you'll have freedom. Awesome. Your children will have freedom. Great. And you just work hard every day. And wait a minute, go back to that. I have to work hard. And in that is an implied struggle. And I think that explains why in the middle of your life, you're just pretty sad. Because you have to work so hard. And hopefully by the end, when you're retired, you don't have to work as hard. Then you're free to be happy. But there is in every narrative of the American dream, there is struggle, and struggle is not the happiest time of your life.
And on that note, I hope we've added a little happiness to your life this week. That's Fred Karger, that's Brett Erlich, I'm Dave Rubin. We do this every week. There's like buttons and subscribe things and all kinds of other buttons. Just click them, press them, whatever you got to do, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.